want to make sure that the public understands it. Terrible thing that happened. But every public report I read is EMS responding so quickly they're right on set. We hear it all.
Right. And we work together with the PD on school shooting incidents and things like that. We haven't worked together in a little while, but typically that happens every year. We'll work together. We're going in as a rescue task force, our EMS personnel. And the main thing is not to bleed. That's the big thing right now that they've researched that you don't send EMS personnel in there with police protection to stop those bleeds. People are dying a lot faster. So our main mission is to put tourniquets on, stop that bleeding, and move on to the next patient.
So if you could just update the commission on your next exercise, it'd be interesting to observe.
Sure.
So,
yep, we can
do
it.
Anything more? Good, thank you. Next item on the agenda is request to approve budget resolution 2023 in the amount of $35,886.98.
Okay, so this one came about last year. We had a couple of separate instances with truck one where we had to file an insurance claim on that. Due to part shortages and everything else, and engine 2 being out for an extended period of time in the repair shop, we kind of had to wait to get our truck one fixed. So we paid the deductible last year in 2022. The insurance money was deposited into the general fund in 2022, but unfortunately finance forgot to carry that money for the repairs into 2023. So the money is there, it just wasn't carried forward. So we have to do this budget resolution to obtain those dollars to fix truck one. The time has come to fix truck one, everything is in, so we're ready to repair it. So that's what the budget resolution is about. And I guess I'm asking for your approval to move this forward to the Finance Budget Personnel Committee and then to Common Council for approval. So we can
So this is a procedure that you go through to correct the city's accounting error.
Correct.
Yeah, it was interesting to me that it went into the general fund.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make a motion to approve the resolution. Your explanation is perfectly clear.
I will second that motion.
Any discussion, questions? Hearing none, no, go ahead, get at it.
Kirschman.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Anchor.
Yes.
Keo.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And what does cost the 35,000 again?
35,000. I'll let DC Mueller talk about that. He's received all the estimates and all that stuff.
There's damage. There was two separate incidents. There was damage. Some of this had to do with new firefighters doing some training. Unfortunately, there was some damage to one, the driver's side, a smaller area. That was a smaller one for about 6,000, and then there was a larger amount of damage done to the passenger side, and that accounted for the rest of the amount.
All right, that's fine.
I think it's a good explanation. What actually did happen, though? I'm not trying to shame anybody, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, I can certainly go through it on 14th. So when you get down to 14th Street and where Oak Avenue meet, there's an electrical pole. In my mind, is a little bit too close to that area. It's got a lot of scrapes and everything on that. We're not the first one to have ever hit that, and unfortunately, they took the turn just a little too tight. That truck takes a lot of time, a lot of training to make sure that we're swinging out far enough to actually make that corner. And there was other cars that were parked in the other part, so it was hard for him to make the turn. And unfortunately, ended up scraping on that side. The other one happened at our pumps in the city of Marshfield. There's a bollard there to make sure that you don't hit the main pole that goes to the canopy. And they just went a little bit too tight on that one. And unfortunately ended up striking that, but stopped and backed up. Didn't do additional damage, but Still did enough damage where it doesn't take much to get a little bit of money.
So two things, Board of Public Works may need to see if you can give them move the pole. Accidents do happen, especially.
And, you know, oh, sorry. One thing we did do too is after these incidents is we got everybody out. And what we do is you have to watch that rear dual. So that's where your turning point is. If you don't have that obstacle in between those duals in the back, you're gonna hit something. And so there was a retraining that happened with the entire department that we went out and redid all this to make sure everybody understood that pivot point with that truck, because it is a monster. It's long. So we did get out there and retrain on this.
Yeah, it's just, the only reason I asked is just a little bit more description is, and this all makes sense. Thank you.
And that truck does have a 40-foot turn radius, so that just tells you that's a big distance you're gonna try to go for.
And how long will it take for him to pay that off out of his check?
The good news is it was covered under insurance. So,
Those things happen, and you know, people don't realize when you have somebody new, you have to expect it takes time, whether it's sitting behind a desk or driving the truck. It takes time. All right, let me see. Anything else in that area? How about the chief? How about the police department's stuff?
Sure. Got a couple of things I'd like to point out. On the 2nd, we went down to Lincoln Elementary School. They received a grant. It was only one of 10 in the nation. It's only a $500 grant. It doesn't sound like a lot, but I think it speaks to their dedication and their ability to write grants when you only receive one out of 10 given nationwide. It's $500 that would be able to be used for their crossing guards and that sort of stuff. So I thought that was pretty cool. Another one is I actually had the opportunity to attend a school, or class rather, on the 22nd up at Mount Olive Church in Schofield or Weston. It was basically looking at religious entities and churches that are soft targets. And it was a conversation with a lot of law enforcement and church members about how to make churches more safe. There's a lot of grants that are available for churches that can help fund a lot of these things. And it was just a really good conversation. And I enjoyed the class. It was the first one that they've ever had. It sounds like they want to do a yearly training with that. So I enjoyed that. Other than that, I didn't see anything that really stood out, but I'm open to answer any questions and just ask if they place on file.
Any comments, questions?
Just one comment, very pleased again with the number of training opportunities. We had 11 training opportunities last month. That's just superb.
Yeah, and sometimes in the summer it dies down a little bit, but it didn't seem to this last month. So it's good to see.
Anything else?
On the crime stats, next time around, could we have a 6-month breakdown of drug arrests in terms of marijuana and subdividing hard drugs? Not that marijuana is not hard, but, meth, cocaine, heroin, and so forth.
I can see if I can find a report to run.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? Well, now we come to the fun part of our morning. Let me see, review and approval of the proposed 2023 fire and rescue department budget.
Thank you. Before you find the packet, we've all had a little time to review our proposed 2024 budget for fire protection, prevention, and EMS. Just like to say I'm proud of our team effort on this. I think we put together a comprehensive and responsible budget for 24. And I specifically want to thank Deputy Chief Mueller, Deputy Chief Bacus, and Lori for all the work that they put in on this process and getting things together and making this happen. So in your proposed budget booklet, we've given you a general overview of each account or each budget, I'm sorry, and as well as a detailed line item for each budget category. So there's a couple of different ways to look at the information. We do have some new projects and activities. I'll touch on the major ones that are kind of spread apart across all three budgets. The first one is a storage shed. Our current shed out back is very small. We have things like snowplow and lawn tractor. We can't get everything in there. So a lot of our stuff right now is currently sitting on the apparatus floor. That storage shed is also in disrepair. We've had to do a lot of repairs to it. In fact, we had to redo the doors this year. We just believe it's time for a larger, newer storage shed to put out back to store some of our extra equipment. Conference room chairs, classroom chairs, washer and dryer, other office equipment. Much of that stuff was new to when this building was built. So these chairs are now 14 years old. We're starting to see those things come into play for a need for replacement. So we do have a program in place. DC Mueller put together a good program here where we're going to be replacing things over a period of the next 3 to 5 years instead of trying to do it all at once. I'd like to commend him for that. We have removal of gray water system in the budget. The system really never worked since we put it in. What the gray water system was intended to do as part of the green part of this construction is was intended to bring the shower water from upstairs down into a tank. And then it was supposed to be cleaned with chlorine tablets and different chemicals. And then was supposed to be pumped into the downstairs toilets to be used for flushing the toilets. The system never worked from day one. We've called around to other places that have had this. They're not in service anymore. The company that installed this is no longer around. So right now we have a large tank with other equipment sitting in one of our storage closets. We just like to get that removed. We did call the plumbing inspector in, and due to the replumbing of some of the water lines, it does have to be done by a licensed plumber. So we'd like to get that done this year and get that out of that closet. So we have more. Similar to the PD, we'd like to have an awards banquet like they do to honor those who went above and beyond during the year and to thank our members for their service. So we do have some money in there for that spread across all three budgets. And then lastly, I'd just like to point out across all three budgets, we've also included an undercarriage washing system. Salt is our major enemy of our fire apparatus. In order for us to get all the way underneath that and get the salt off, a lot of departments are moving towards an undercarriage wash system. And again, we'd like to get that going this for 2024. Other than that, if it's okay, I'll walk you through each budget, just give you an overview and answer any questions that you might have. The fire protection budget, we are asking for $127,512.80 increase, which is 4.5% over last year. Taking a dive into the data and the stats, salaries, benefits, and overtime have called for an increase of 145 or about 146,000. So that's above that $127,000 mark. So outside of those categories, we're actually looking at it. I'd be asking for a decrease in other operating supplies and other things in that budget. Inflation, obviously, still playing a major role in our budgets and pricing uncertainty from vendors. We're seeing a higher increase in operating supplies. In the fire protection budget, we've never had a line item to replace tires on our apparatus. DC Mueller went out and priced those out, and for the truck, I believe it was $12,000 just to replace those tires. And per DOT standards, no matter what the wear is on them, no matter how good a shape they're in, they have to be replaced every 10 years to pass that inspection. So that's one thing we'd like to include in this budget is $10,000 to replace tires. Sounds like a lot, but that will also help us with from year to year basis, we have tires that get screws or whatever in them, and we have to do those repairs as well. So we're hoping that'll cover that. Also in our travel budget, that increased $6,000 over last year. That is basically our training budget is what that is. Courses like hazmat refresher, confined space refresher, that's all mandated by the state. If we're to have those programs, we have to have a certified refresher class for those. So that accounts for a lot of what we have to put in there for training. In the fire prevention budget, we're looking at about a 7.7% increase over 2023 or $70,000. Two main reasons that it equates to 7.7%. The first one is wages and benefits again. That's about 25% or $17,000. The second thing in there, and this is the major piece of why that was such a large increase, is we need $42,000 to, if the SAFER grant comes to fruition and we are able to hire 9 firefighters, those firefighters need radios. So that accounts for $42,000 or 57% of that $70,000 increase in that budget. If the SAFER grant is not, if we're not awarded that, that is something that we could pull from this year's budget. But again, that is the major reason we're seeing a 7.7% increase in the fire prevention budget. We also had some other increases in line items for some new things like minor projects, such as like a tent for our public education when we go to events. It'd be nice to set up a tent as kind of a home base. People can see us, people can see where the fire department is. We can use that to keep our fire prevention materials there, make contact with the public and those sorts of things. So there are a couple of minor projects in there as well, fire prevention to make it better. I'd like to spend a little bit more time on the EMS budget. As we all know, that's in the enterprise fund. So the EMS enterprise fund is set up to basically run like a business. So we're trying to, the money we get from grants, the money we get from the state, the money we get from billing, that should cover the expenses of that budget. That's the goal. Besides that, last year we had 3 positions in that budget that remained unfunded. Those positions are vacant due to the budget issues with the city of Marshfield. We weren't able to fill those positions. However, starting for 24, those positions were still left in the EMS enterprise fund and are sitting there vacant, but they're acting, not acting, but they're showing it as if they're going to be filled this year. And looking at that and looking at the numbers, I think we all know that we tried this in the past and it did not work. After crunching the numbers and looking at this a little more closely, the EMS enterprise fund, if you leave those 3 firefighters in there, by looking at the numbers, we end up about $383,000 into the negative. I don't think that's the route we should go. I do have other options available for sure, but I don't feel that would be a responsible thing to do would be put those 3 firefighters in the EMS enterprise fund. However, with that being said, we do need those 3 firefighters. Especially with call volume and the way fires are today, their violence, the speed at which they grow, we do need those 3 firefighters. So I'd like to just talk about this a little bit further on page 4 in your packet. For filling those vacant positions, I guess what I'd like to do, I'd like to see done is shared revenue, as we all know, increased for the city of Marshfield by over $1 million. Our firefighters were at the state fire chiefs conference. At that conference, Tony Kurtz spoke to the fire chiefs about this increase in shared revenue. He stated that the increase in shared revenue was intended to be allocated to fund public safety. This is That extra $1 million is what they're calling the supplemental shared revenue increase. We confirmed this yesterday with the League of Municipalities. We sat in on a webinar, which lasted about an hour and a half. And they also confirmed that this is what the intent of this money is for. Representative Kurtz urged the fire chiefs to take this information back to the municipalities. So the supplemental shared revenue was used in accordance with the intent of the legislation. So with that being said, I would recommend that we move those 3 vacant positions out of the EMS Enterprise Fund, help that account out, and put them into the fire protection account. After talking with finance, we know that 3 firefighters would cost about $311,874. So that would use approximately 1/3 of that $1 million that's intended for public safety. I know Commissioner Keough is going to ask the question here very shortly. Is there anything in this? Is there anything that you left out of the budget that you feel should be in there? We spent the majority of the end of 2022 and the beginning of 2023 lobbying for an additional 9 firefighters. I still stand by that we need more than just 3 vacant positions. However, looking at the budget and the parameters and everything else, I did not include those 3 to 6 additional firefighters and beyond the 3 that are vacant right now. I guess what I propose is that we look at getting the 3 firefighters funded through the fire protection budget using the shared revenue monies that are coming to the city, and explore another referendum. We're still waiting to hear on the SAFER grant for the additional 9 firefighters. We expect to hear back at the end of August, early September on that issue. We also look at the halftime admin assistant position that was shared with the PD. I think we look at referendum possibly again in 2024. So those are all options for those additional firefighters. I did leave those out of this budget just due to a significant increase that would occur. I think we can look at getting those funded. In summary, I guess, I think we've prepared a budget that's responsible, but still allow us to train, to get our equipment that we need, supplies we need, and also the maintenance aspect. I guess I would ask the members of the Police and Fire Commission to discuss and provide information relating to filling of those 3 vacant firefighter positions on the current roster. Consider moving those over to the fire protection budget out of the EMS budget. Provided the commission agrees to that, I could then pursue moving this towards Finance Budget Personnel Committee for approval and then to Common Council. So that's kind of the next steps that I would have to take in order to get that done.
Okay, so let's start with a motion to approve the budget. Let's present.
I'm supposed to say that.
What's your? I'll start with me.
Okay, let's get this started by a motion to approve the fire department budget. Second. We don't need a roll call for this one, do we?
Shields of money.
No, we're talking about approving the budget. All right. Go ahead and get at it.
Gershman,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Keo.
Yes. Questions, comments? Yes, Mr. Green.
You know, I think the budget's, I think you guys have done an exceptional job here, especially with the degree of explanation. And we've always talked in the past about the public wants to fund you as much as they possibly can. You know, we've had some discussions, just me and you, Chief, just about the record. You know, I think the most realistic thing is let's get those 3 we'll see what common council and finance and budget. There's no question we need those three positions filled, for sure. You know, and I think you could make the argument that overtime would go down a bit. I don't know how much it actually would. It depends on the dynamics of who's limited, but yeah, I think it's full.
Thank you.
Do you have anything?
I just have one question about the undercarriage wash system. Can you guys get a new vehicle? You guys are talking about one coming up here in the next couple of years. Do they offer any sort of undercoating, rust proofing, a protection for that underbody?
Yes, and we generally get that every time, provided we can squeeze that into the budget. But however, unless you keep up with, they offer undercoatings too that you can put on annually.
Sure.
Very expensive. But I know what you're saying and what you're getting at, that may indeed pay for itself. We thought going with this undercarriage washing system that we could hit it twice a week or once a week during the winter time.
Sure.
And this could hit all the rigs instead of, getting that replaced every year. Thought it was a more economical way to do this. Sure. So that's kind of the basis behind it. But yeah, we do try to do that when we spec out the every rig we have to get that done.
That's a really good point. I did a little research, and even if you had somebody come in and occasionally spray some solution, they might don't wash them. You try to keep it. So, right.
And what I see on the automotive side is where they're not protected and people, I wash my vehicle all the time. And the problem is those areas can never dry out then. And then that water and that mud and that salt that sits in there and it stays active all the time. So there is a point of you can do it too much. You can wash it too much. And, there are products that can be applied that are a one-time deal that lasts very, very well, and they protect very well from what I have seen. And so I didn't know if they offered that sort of thing or.
Yeah, they certainly do, and maybe we could talk more. That's something we could do instead of this. Good having you on the commission. But yeah, we're just looking to reduce our overall maintenance costs, because a lot of what we that gets cited on our mechanical repairs when we have to send our rigs in to get certified every year for DOT is a lot of rust jacking, components underneath that need repair due to rust. That's a lot of our issues. So whatever we can do to prevent that, we're trying to do. Yeah.
Just to add to what Chris is saying, when you take a look at some of these firms that sell used emergency service vehicles, the highest priced vehicles are those that are coming out of the southern states and western states where there's no rust. They're going for a premium.
Right.
Just a couple other items here. Page 11. It's about a little page from boiler. And then page 14, and then at the top, page 15. These are all items that relate to when the building was originally constructed. I think when this building was put up, there were a lot of items that were probably the state of the art and advancing at that time. And as the years have gone on, in spite of the fact that this facility won an award for its design, we found that we may have been taken in the original design on a number of these state-of-the-art at that time items, such as the heating system. I noticed that we have here updated landscaping, currently the pond, that sort of thing have not worked. I had more problems with that was first put in. And then the showers beginning to fail. And the notation here, again, this came from the original specs. This building was constructed. Basically are unrepairable at this time.
Right, so, yeah, when we put those in there, they're kind of an off-brand shower. We've tried to find replacement parts for this, and we just can't find the parts for it, so we're replacing it with more common things that we can replace on our own.
Now, one question on that, is that the plumbing or is that the entire unit?
Do you want me to speak up?
Yeah, go ahead.
That'd be the entire unit. What we're doing is we're actually replacing the piping, but unfortunately that's tile. So they have to have a raised surface with stainless steel over the top.
Okay.
So that is the entire module. And what we're doing is replacing that module with like a Delta type faucet,
Okay, sure.
type valves. That way, when it comes time to do any kind of replacement in the future, we can do it through our local plumbing suppliers, and they can take care of it for a lot less cost than we're putting in. We had to rebuild one recently, and it was almost $1,200 to rebuild that unit, and that was because of the parts, because they used part of it or a system that really isn't overly utilized any longer and kind of outdated. So you're trying to find parts that are on a shelf somewhere in place. But now we're going to replace it with better stuff or stuff that we can utilize more often.
And I think this has bearing on whenever we get new police headquarters building. When this thing is spec'd out, and obviously we don't deal with buildings, another city agency does. That's to make sure that we are dealing with, shall we say, not like I used before, high-tech state-of-the-art at the time, but we're dealing with some solid traditional materials so that we don't get caught short and have some additional expenses. The other items on page 15. I'm glad to see that we are looking at some sort of cooling capability for hot weather.
Yes.
I know recently, because of the hot weather down the southwest, Phoenix Fire Department's been on TV a number of times showing off their cooling apparatus for keeping saline solutions and water cool. We haven't had that much hot weather like they have. Certainly, for a major incident or those occasional episodes, we do have hot weather. This is very valuable. The only other comment that I have is about the replacement of some of our cutting tools to be battery powered. I have some concerns about going battery powered, but certainly these are lighter and require less resistance.
Correct.
So I think in spite of some concerns that we may have, that probably is.
A lot of fire departments are headed in that direction. Just, if you ever had a saw that's flooded out and tried to start it, it's not starting. And they've come a long way with the battery technology and stuff. So as far as, being able to cut through a roof or whatever, a lot of fire departments have moved in that direction. They're operating just fine. If you think about it, flipping another battery up to a firefighter on a roof that may run into a dead battery relatively quick. So,
And I see also on page 14, we're replacing our washer and dryer. When we're looking at the washer, how well does this decontaminate here? Or are we going through the process now where after a fire has been suppressed and we're ready to go home, everybody gets sprayed down?
yeah, so we have, it's separate from the extractor we have, but you're right. So on a fire scene, right after the scene, we're spraying down the gear and decontaminating, doing kind of a gross decon right on scene. We'll come back, that gear will go into the extractor. This washer and dryer is more for the towels, linens, that sort of thing. And it became as highly used, especially during COVID, during incidents of bed bugs and things like that we run into on EMS calls. You know, that washer and dryer gets used a lot for uniforms as well for people.
This is a question that I should probably know the answer to. How much of the increase in your budget is based on contractual obligations? Union contract is with the city rather than with you.
Right, so I tried to touch on that fire protection budget. It was $145,000. What we were asking for is $127,000 increase in the budget. So that makes up more than what we're actually asking for in the budget. In the fire protection prevention side, $17,000 increase or 25% of that overall increase in that budget. So it makes up a significant portion of why our budgets are higher. And it's kind of one of those uncontrollable things that we can't. There's not a whole lot we can do with that.
Oh, yeah. I'm not exactly sure how to deal with it or suggest how to deal with it. But I think there should be a note someplace in your budget request pointing out that a significant portion of that budget is the city's decision to approve a contract for compensation that you have no control over. The city added that to your budget. Anyway, I have a whole bunch of little things. Maybe it would be worth, sitting down with you or whatever, the kind of thing, freedom of information you've got on page 3. You've got it in quotation marks. You don't need quotation marks, and that should be capitalized. Anyway, thank you. It's those kinds of things we can talk about. Other than that, I thought it was well done, well prepared. I've got some things circled because I don't quite understand how they came to be this way or how you decided to do it that way, but nothing all that serious. So I am done. Are there any additional comments or questions about the fire department budget? We knew this meeting would have to take a little longer going over the budgets, but we need to get on with it too. Anything else going on in your minds about budget? Thank you.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thanks.
Yeah. Let me see, where else are we? We now need to do the police department, is that right? We haven't done you yet?
Not yet. You always follow the fire department.
Do we need a,
Every other time.
There's two steps. Like, just
would you quit it?
sorry.
What do you want?
Okay, here's what my thought, right? So we approved the budget, right? This budget been approved, right?
Oh, and we need a roll call for that.
Yeah, we'll call for that. But I would like to do a separate motion to request the 3 position. Thank you.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping for.
Yeah, and I wasn't gonna, but I'm gonna now. We went to the people of this community and asked for time.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't seem to me to be very consistent to not ask in some way for 9 and not just 3.
Mm-hmm.
And exactly how that would best be done, I'm not sure. Now you talk about, we've got some alternatives here that we're working on and looking at.
Right.
But I think the citizens of the city need to know that it's more important now than it was when we did the referendum stuff.
Right.
Now, how you add that to the budget, how you make that clear to the council, I'm not sure, but I'd sure think about it.
Yeah, when I struggled with that too. I just didn't, adding 9 firefighters to the budget would have been, over $900,000. And is what it is. That's what we need.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. But I struggled. I waffled back and forth adding those. Do I add them? Do I not add them?
Well, you made your choice and you presented the budget the way you have.
Yeah.
That's fine. I guess what I'm suggesting is that you put an introduction or an appendix or something that says this budget does not reflect what we really need. It includes 3 firefighters, and we've told everybody that we really need 9, and that hasn't changed.
Okay, I can certainly do that. Thank you.
Something, anyway.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Get a good strategic plan to know that in the future you need to build the remaining 6 firefighters.
Yeah. Police department, it's not, we've got a motion. What do you want?
Just wanted to,
What?
you know that Randy wants to make a motion.
Oh, a motion for asking for 3 additional, bringing forward a request, finance budget council for 3 additional full-time firms.
So to move those 3 from EMS,
Yeah, EMS.
fire protection.
Second, because they don't exist right now other than unfilled EMS, so we need.
Okay, so you are making the motion. Put those into the other portion of the budget. I would second that.
Any comments, questions, discussion of that? Hearing none, oh no, you gotta do roll call, right? You just want something to do, hurry up.
Gershman,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Finger,
Yes.
Keo.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we gotta get those people somehow.
I don't, I'm really hoping Safer Grant comes through.
Chief,
Thank you. Well, this is only my second budget with this department. Learned a lot, and that is with the help of the team that puts this together. And I certainly couldn't have gone through this without them. I'm very appreciative of their help. They've given me. Even Travis. So,
Especially Travis.
especially Travis. So, I really just want to give a broad view of what our goals were with this budget. I don't think this commission would want me to go line by line. I think that you guys all understand this, and our budget is pretty straightforward. So I'll give a broad overview if that's okay, and then we can answer questions after that. One of the biggest things that I've learned in my short tenure as chief is that we can get hit with large bills when items that we need wear out and we don't plan to replace them. We had that happen to us last year with our rifles. I think we replaced close to 30 rifles because we were having malfunctions, and it's a safety item. Well, that was a lot of money to come up with at one time. And that's happened to us in some other items that we've had to purchase that just simply wear out. So our strategy now is to try to develop a plan where we can buy a few of those items that wear out every year at less cost, and hopefully be able to rotate so we have newer items as time goes on. We're starting that with our rifles. We've done it with our handguns for a while, but we're going to be replacing 5 rifles a year so that we can get through our stock and keep those items in newer condition as we go through them. So we can hopefully prevent some malfunctions with those. Also, this year has been difficult with the budget cuts that we had to face. And so we put into this budget much of what we had to cut from last year. We did plan to replace the law enforcement officer that we're short, and also the record specialist that we're short. Our department has banded together this year, and we're making things happen, but this isn't a sustainable model that we can continue with, and we need to build back to where we were. So most of the increases that you see from this year's budget into next year's is really just replacing what we had to cut from last year. And then adding what our rotation for the items that I talked about before. The last item of note is that if we're lucky enough to be awarded the Wildwood Plaza building, we're going to have to take on some costs, and not sure on who would pay the plowing bills and the heat bills and the water bills for that building during the time before we have construction in it. I thought it would be appropriate for us to at least put it into our budget. And if the city decides that that would be a city bill, then it can be removed from our budget at that point. But I thought it was worth at least putting it up front and have people thinking about how we would cover those maintenance costs or attempt to cover maintenance costs, is that we don't really even know what they would be at this point. So I did add that in the budget. Really with that, that was our general goal, and I'm willing to answer any questions that any of you have, or at least try to answer any questions.
Randy's right. We need a motion to approve the police department budget and discuss it.
I move to approve the police.
Is there a second to Bill's motion? Second. Thank you. Any discussion of the motion? Hearing none, we need a roll call.
Hirschman,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Pinker,
Yes.
Keel.
Yes. Now we have a motion on the floor. Is there any, or are there any questions for the chief?
What are we looking at for vehicle replacements for this year?
Vehicle replacements are through the CIP, obviously. We will be purchasing 3. We've not been able to sell vehicles for a couple of years because of our supply issues that we were having. But hopefully this fall we'll be able to sell a few to reimburse some of those costs. But we're going to have 3 on first line vehicles this year, and I'm hopeful that we may be able to replace the ordinance vehicle this year, but certainly after January.
Okay. Now, for the vehicles, are we soliciting local bids, or is this coming out of the state? Statewide process.
For a number of years now, we have gone through V&H, and in talking with other chiefs who have gone, a lot of them are through Ewald down in, I guess, Milwaukee area. We have been a lot more successful in getting vehicles than they have been. So I've been really happy with what V&H has done, and they're local, and I think that there's no reason even to change right now.
Okay. Now, I know we've had problems with the Dodge.
Yes.
Are you looking, depending upon what the prices are, what they're coming up with as far as their comparative bids? And also being a proponent of the Michigan State Police testing program. Looking at our experience and looking at what MSP comes up with, do you see any preferred vehicle to go to?
I asked this very question to some of the folks up at B&H, and although we've been really hammered with the engine problems that the Hemis have had, what's happening is that Dodge isn't making Hemi anymore. They're not making the V8s. The 6 cylinders have been performing better, and most likely we would stay with the Durango and the 6 cylinder. They seem to be the best price and fit our needs the best at this point. That being said, they take bids in the fall. So I think last year was right around September is when the state bids open up. And I plan to look at comparisons. Most likely it would either be a Explorer or a Durango.
Then on page 16 of the budget, for actual services, regional computer forensic faculty. That the one operated at Wausau PD.
Marathon County, I believe.
I know one of their detectives recently received national recognition for his skill.
Yep, that was a marathon 20 day.
Thank you, Bill. Randy, you have? Yes.
You answered my questions.
I would ask the same thing in the police department. Do you have a sense of how much increase in your budget is related to contractual obligations from the city?
That was an excellent question, and I was hoping you weren't going to ask me and just pick on Pete. But it's wishful thinking. We have about a 3% increase on wages, and then with that comes obviously the retirement, the other things that are tied to the wages. So there's at least that 3%. I see that our expenses are about 3.7% increase from last year. And without knowing much about finances, I'm thinking that 0.7 probably with our non-represented increases as well, which is only a 1% plus whatever step we're on. So my guess is right around that 3 or 4% is going to be what's increased from the state.
See, and I don't mean for either of you to do this in an attempt to rub their nose in it. That's not the point. But I think it's important for the alderpersons to have a sense that the increase in budget is based on a contractual obligation that the city made with their representative unions, and not something that you have any control over.
Yeah, what's strange to me when I first started diving into these things, that our control on the budget is really only about 10% of the whole thing. We don't have control over 90% of what we're facing. So,
and I would believe, if you were an alderman and you had to deal with the money stuff and the budget stuff, recognizing that the largest two pieces of the people budget in the city's whole budget is something that the two chiefs and the commission really don't have control over. I don't, it's more a matter in my mind of helping the alderpersons, the council understand that. Anyway,
thank you.
I thought it was very well done. I've got sort of marks here and there, but nothing that I need to query you about. Yes,
Randy's got.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I've just got one request. So from the historical perspective is just so the public understands, and everybody else here does too, I'm sure, is this is going to go to the city administrator who's going to look at it. And the office is going to approve it. What I would like to see again from both chiefs is come back and tell us what they eliminated and where. Maybe give us a good justification. This can certainly be in written form sent to us. But in the past, we really haven't looked at it after the cuts have been made. Right? But I think as a commission, we have a responsibility for the councils, obviously, in terms of what was cut, because it gives us a better idea what they consider important or not, and how it affects the operation. So if we could do that, that would be absolutely great. Thank you.
I'd just like to point out too, Commissioner Keel was talking about the costs that are kind of out of our control. Insurance this year, just in the fire protection budget alone, went up $44,000. So I mean, those are just things that we have no control over.
Well, you're a public entity, but anyone who's in business is facing the same thing.
Right.
And you probably experienced that in one form or another. It's sort of the way it is. Items for future meetings is item 15. I appreciate your patience with this, but What's that? Oh, naming of public buildings for information only. I looked through that, and it seems to me that's the naming of public buildings is the city's business.
That's correct.
It is not our business. Now, we could go to the city and ask them to go through their process, but we don't decide on the name for a building, for the training grounds or, well, anyway, that's the essence of it.
That is the essence of it. If we wanted to suggest a name, as I know it to Steve Barr, if we're going to suggest a name, we would do so with significant justification.
Yeah, you know, I think, and it makes sense. It's the city's property. So you write a letter to the city saying so-and-so is a wonderful person and contributed a tremendous amount. And we think it would be warranted to name whatever. And then the city goes through their process. I don't think it's been done much. And so it would be something, I think, new for the city as far as that goes. Anything else I should be covering? Just having a few seconds to think about it. Being president of this body for a year or whatever time, I am pleased and proud to do it because I think both departments, fire and police, police and fire, whichever way we go, are in absolutely terrific shape right now. And that makes being president easy. However, I feel like I've been a bit of a lightning rod. And so hold on to your seats, boys.
Power's already going to his head.
I'm not sure what's happening. Is there anything else to bring before the group? We are adjourned. And Merritt, thank you for coming and thank you for staying.